Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, text number 30. Yomam Bhajati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamai Pashiti Tasyaham Na Pranashami Sacha Mena Pranashiti Yomam Pashiti Sarvatra Sarvam Chamai Pashiti Tasyaham Na Pranashami Sachamena Pranashiti Pashiti Sarvatra
Sarvam Chamai Pashati
Sacham Pashati Sachamena Pranashati Yamam Bhajati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamai Pashati Sacham Na Pranashami Sachamena Pranashati
Yamam Pashati Sarvatra
Yamam Pashati Sarvatra
Sarvam Chamai Pashati
Sarvam Chamai Pashati
Tasyaham Na Pranashyami
Sachamama Pranashati
Sachamena Pranashyati
Sachamena Pranashati Jenske Yamam Bhajati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamai Pashati Tasyaham Na Pranashami Sachamena Pranashati Ya whoever Mam me Pashati sees Sarvatra everywhere Sarvam everything Cha and Mai in me Pashati sees Tasya for him Aham I Na not Pashami Pranashami am lost Sa he Cha also Me to me Na nor Pranashati is lost. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, position transcendental even to the material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna, and the sense of Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full and loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated. nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. The devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita 538. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santaksadaiva hridayeshi vilokayanti yam shaima sundaram achintya guna swarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen as the eternal form of Shama Sundar, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee, cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Yo mam pashati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashati tasyaham na pranashami sarme sa chame na pranashati. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Te Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shindivari Paskatyade Satarna. Certainly describing an advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, that there's a stage of Krishna consciousness called asakti. And asakti means attachment. Krishna will say in the next chapter, Maya sakta mano yemam ityuk. That's not right either. Sri Bhagavan Maya sakta manakparata yoga yunjanmanashrayam asam shayam samagramam itagyasasi taschinu. So this asakti means that the happiness is so great that one cannot live without that happiness. And it's ever expanding. So that Krishna is the source of that happiness. And if we become conscious of Krishna, then we become conscious of an unlimited ocean of happiness, which one becomes completely addicted to and can't live without, just like a fish cannot live without water. So right now, being covered by the illusory energy, we're thinking that Krishna may be like this, or the happiness in Krishna consciousness may be like that. And somehow or another, we think we're existing happily without Krishna. That Krishna is some bonus thing we can add on to our life, if we'd like. But there are so many alternatives, so many interesting YouTube channels, so many interesting things to find out about and do in this world. And we can add a little Krishna to it too. So this is known as illusion. And the reason why Krishna has explained that we're an illusion is Umena Vriyate Vanir, Itardar Shomalena Cha, Itobe Nabrita Garvas, Tata Tenema Abrita. Just like the smoke is covered by, actually, Dumena Vriyate Vanir. Just like fire is covered by smoke, or the embryo is covered by the womb, or the mirror is covered by dust, so the living entity is covered by different degrees of lust. So because we're covered by the illusory energy, therefore we don't taste Krishna, and actually we don't taste anything. It's like when you have a big feast, no one puts a plastic glove over their tongue. It wouldn't be a very enjoyable feast. You can eat, but you won't taste anything except for the plastic. So that's the material world. Our original spiritual body is covered by not just the body, because the body is not the problem, it's the illusory energy that it's covered by. And that's experienced as the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, ignorance. Sometimes we're peaceful, sometimes we're agitated, and sometimes we're dull. And that's our experience in the material world. When we're in the mode of goodness, then the problem is sometimes we think we know everything. We even think we know something. Well, actually, in the material world means we not only don't know anything, but we're an illusion, so we know all the wrong. We think what we think is wrong, we know is all wrong. If you don't know anything, that's one thing, then you can find something out. But if everything you know is wrong, and you think you know something, then you're really in trouble. So that's called material existence. Everyone is thinking that they know something, and everything they know is wrong. Prabhupada gives the example when you're trying to learn how to play the violin. You go to a very famous violin place in Vienna, Austria, and they ask you, how many years have you practiced the violin? And if you say, I practiced the violin for 5 years, then they charge you twice as much as they normally would charge you. Because they know they have to spend twice as much time, first of all, teaching you how to forget everything you thought you knew, and then trying to learn what actually is the correct method. So that's the material world. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says that Kamara Acharat Pragyo Dharman Bhagavaten Iha Durlavan Manusha Janma Tarapidam Artadam. From the very tender age of childhood, Kamara, one should begin the practice of Bhagavad Dharma, Krishna consciousness. Because although the human form of life is just as temporary as the other lives are, the other forms of life, still in this human form of life, we can have the opportunity to actually become Krishna conscious. Now, we may think it's a very difficult process, it's going to take so long, but actually it's a very simple process, and it doesn't take very long at all, just that we have no conception of time either. As I said, 1 moment in Brahma's lifetime is equal to 1,000 of our years. 10,000. Is it 1,000? Let's see. How much is it? 1 moment in Brahma's life is equal to 100,000 of our years. So in one moment of Brahma's life, we go through 1,000 births and deaths if we live for 100 years each time. Now, 1 moment in our years is exactly how much Brahma experiences his 1,000 years, or his year. How much we experience a year is what Brahma, or a moment, let's say a second. Now, for Brahma, our second, his second is 100,000 of our years, and Brahma experiences it as a second, not as 100,000 years. Now, we experience it as 100,000 years because we're suffering. Now, we don't think we're suffering because we're in ignorance. Therefore, we don't realize how much we're suffering. But for Brahma, who's not even on the highest level of enjoyment, but compared to us, he has practically unlimited enjoyment. He's not even fully conscious of Krishna, as just Brahma, as our Brahma, because he's a devotee. Therefore, he's absorbed in Krishna consciousness. But for an ordinary Brahma, because he's beyond most of the modes of material nature, therefore his 1 second is just like a second for him. And for us, it's 100,000 years. Now, if we just try to concentrate our minds upon Krishna through the recommended process, just try it, for example, kirtan, just try to listen with some attention, even though we have no other intelligence other than attention, still we make so much progress, inconceivable progress. And then if we actually try to pay attention, if we actually try to improve our devotional service, then Krishna will give us so much intelligence how to make progress. Because as soon as we take up the process of devotional service, Krishna will help us in so many different ways. Now, of course, Krishna will also try to discourage us from being in Maya. That's probably a more difficult thing. because we're quite attached to being in Maya. Just like if you take a worm, you try to take it out of a stool, he'll protest. Why are you torturing me? I was living peacefully in the stool. I was hungry and you took me out during lunch. I mean, outside here it smells terrible, but there it smells, it's so pleasant. I can't stand the smell out here. I have to go back. Besides that, my whole family is there. My grandchildren are there. My great-grandchildren are there. The whole family is there. Let me go. So the worm is thinking it's enjoying it. It thinks it's in the right place. It can't bear to be apart. But it's actually in ignorance. It doesn't understand what's actually going on. So here it says we have to practice learning how to see Krishna everywhere. Not only chant Hare Krishna, but try to see Krishna everywhere and then act as if Krishna is everywhere. Now we may not see Krishna with a flute, a peacock feather, but at least theoretically we should try to understand how Krishna is everywhere so we can act as if Krishna is everywhere. And if we act as if Krishna is everywhere, or at least somewhere, for instance, we have the temple and we have the deities. So generally no devotee comes here with a football and starts kicking it around the temple. Because we know the deities are here. Even we may not be able to talk to the deities, whatever is our realization of the deities, but still we show some respect. We try to act as if Krishna is here. We don't lie down in the temple, put our feet to the deities. We have some level of respect being in the temple. So outside the temple, there Krishna is everywhere also. It's not that only Krishna is in the temple. And outside is like a free zone. We can do whatever we want. Inside the temple, we don't put on a mask, but we put on a little halo. We walk around. I'm so pure. And then we go outside the temple in two little horns. I'm in my normal domain again. Oh, my tail is sticking out. So we have to practice being Krishna conscious outside the temple. For instance, keep our place where we're living clean because it's Krishna's place. Try to remember the people we're dealing with are actually Krishna's devotees. And then even outside the temple, everyone is actually Krishna's servant. And we should try to think about ways of helping them become Krishna conscious. So many different ways we can do it. And that's great advancement. Because generally, most people, even those who are more or less Krishna conscious to some degree, the only time, practically speaking, they're Krishna conscious at all is when they come to the temple and see the deities. And in their home, they may have the deities, in a little place, they have a little, altar for the deities. And many times the Indians, of course you don't have so many Indians in Slovenia, but they have every deity in the universe. They have almost 32 million of them on their altar. And every once in a while, to please the gods, they wipe off the dust so they can see the deities again, which ones are still on there. So that's nice. There's some worship, but it's more important to actually understand that my house is Krishna's temple also. And take it seriously. Chant Hare Krishna in the house regularly. Read Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. Cook for the deities. Offer to the deities. Try to see something beyond, just the temple. At least see my house as a temple. And if we can go out, that's why we do Harinam. So we can remember Krishna outside. That's why we distribute books to people. We can remember, we can see that they're also Krishna's servants. So we can expand our vision and we can remember Krishna. And that way gradually we'll break out of these coverings that are surrounding ourselves so that we get a glimpse of experience and a glimpse of reality, what's actually going on. Then we can see that there's hope, there's actually a future, we're going to go back to the spiritual world sooner than later. Luckily, we won't see the end of Kali Yuga. We won't be around. And even if we have to come back our next birth, we'll get some prasadam and some species of life. That there's something positive that's happening in our lives and that we're making progress. It's not just like another day, another round. Snick, snick, ram, ram. Day, 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 day. Hey, kitty, kitty. Hey, kitty, kitty. Ram, ram. Day, 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 day. Hey, kitty, kitty. Hey, kitty. Why am I not making any progress? It doesn't work. The progress, this science doesn't work. Maybe I should chant something else. So one has to take it a little seriously. Try to associate with Krishna, especially through the holy name, which is available anywhere, or chant the prayers to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever. Try to keep in contact with Krishna through sound vibration and pray to Krishna with the intelligence, the determination to advance in devotional service so that we can actually become Krishna conscious and experience something what's saying here, that the happiness will become so great that we can't live even for a moment without Krishna. That's what we should be looking forward to. That's reality. After all, if Krishna is the source of everything, including all happiness, all beauty, all strength, inconceivable, then anyone who could see Krishna, how could they forget him? Then if one can experience actually what Krishna is like, how can one live without Krishna, even for a moment? So it means that we're asleep, we don't know what's going on, but we have an opportunity to wake up gradually. So we should take advantage of it through the process that's given to us. To reach this perfection that's described here would take a long time, but we can do it very quickly if we have some faith in the holy name, have some faith in the process, and try to do it every day with a little bit more consciousness and a little bit more appreciation. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions?
Maybe this question is not connected to the class, but it's connected to Krishna consciousness.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm interested, Maharaj, you are in the movement of Krishna consciousness for, I don't know, the beginnings. So how did you notice the development of Society of Krishna in the world and the ISKCON, the body of Prabhupada, through this, all the stages, years and periods?
Do you want me, should I go year by year? Well, I don't know, because it's hard to see what Krishna's plan is. Our perspective is rather limited. When Prabhupada was here, the movement expanded rapidly because the Prabhupada, after all, Prabhupada was the direct representative of Krishna, and he was able to influence people because just the same way that Krishna would influence them, practically speaking. He understood their heart. And of course, he came to Kali Yuga, and he could only influence, although he did amazing things, he could only do it to a certain extent. Because our hearts are pretty covered over. Especially being in Kali Yuga, we have a special prarabdha karma. So he did what he could, expanded the movement all around the world. Then after he left, then the devotees who joined when they were 20 years old, or the eldest one was maybe 30 years old. He was considered like really ancient. Practically they had to Instead of a danda, they give him a stick to walk around with. And so Prabhupada left, and some of them took up the role of initiating spiritual masters. After some of them 5 years in the movement, 6 years in the movement, maximum 10 years in the movement. And they were expected to understand what they were doing. And most of those who took the role were not scholars. They were managers. They didn't study Prabhupada's books, and they had practically no idea what they were doing. And the devotees who had some idea what was going on couldn't really express it because otherwise they would have gotten into trouble. So our movement went through some rocky times. On the other hand, somehow or another it's surviving, and in some areas it grew, but whether it's stable or not is another thing. In other words, in some countries where it grows, it doesn't mean that necessarily it's grown in terms of depth of understanding Krishna consciousness amongst the general devotees. Appreciation and participation, but maybe not deeply understanding Krishna consciousness in terms of actually experiencing it on a very deep level, as explained here in the book about devotees who can't live for a moment without associating with Krishna. So this is all arranged by Krishna, just like this coronavirus is arranged by Krishna, because it's a long-term project. To think that people in Kali Yuga are suddenly going to become pure devotees is not very reasonable. And therefore he has a long-term plan, and there's going to be a lot of purification that goes along with it. So we can, in terms of the general movement, it's supposed to last for at least 10,000 years. And this is the time when it's going to develop. How much of it, what's going to be the future, will really depend upon how much, as Prabhupada said, organization and intelligence. We have the perfect process, and but we don't even understand what the process is, or what the process of distributing it or participating in it very well. And therefore, this is going to be a learning curve. Somehow or another, the people who became attracted to Krishna consciousness didn't have a history of generation after generation of preachers like the Christians have or others have. For most of us, it's completely new. And our fathers and our mothers didn't show us the example and didn't show us the methodology. Nor when we went to college or whatever schools we went to, were we taught anything about this. And most people who don't join because they were looking for a spiritual career in Hindu philosophy. So it's going to be a learning curve, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his methodology, what it is. He hasn't quite revealed it to me completely yet, so I can't really say, but it's going to work. The only thing is whether individually we want to participate or not. And what that's going to entail, it's going to entail different tests and things like that, because Maya doesn't let go so easily. The problems that we'll face and the miseries that we're going to face are all meant to inspire us to become conscious of Krishna as the only alternative. And if we take that up, then we'll make progress and we'll go back to the spiritual world sooner than later. And if not, then we have to gradually eventually understand that the miseries of the material world have only one purpose, is to bring us to Krishna consciousness. And if we accept that, then we'll become Krishna conscious. And if we don't accept that, then we'll try to make so many remedies for our problems, and except for Krishna. And therefore we'll have to get more and more problems until we finally conclude that the only remedy is Krishna. Is that right? Anyhow, I can't say, how the movements, we've been around for 50 years, considering it's really up to the real measure is not externally how many buildings the movement has, how many devotees it's made. The real measurement is what the development of the character of the people participating is. If they're not developing depth of Krishna consciousness, then these buildings, everything we're doing has no meaning, because that's the whole purpose of it. So I can't judge that exactly what the development is, but Krishna can. And in the course of time that will be revealed, especially if we create, or this movement creates very exalted devotees who become obvious, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, Prabhupada said, self-effulgent. Then we'll understand the quality and the value of this movement. Yes? Pass the baton.
Thank you, Maharaj. Today's verse sounds nice and romantic, but without the framework of spiritual organization, we wouldn't see Krishna anywhere probably very soon. So my question is, Srila Prabhupada said that ISKCON is his body, and but as we know,
I think he said it was Krishna's body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really Krishna's body.
Krishna's body, he said. I didn't know. Okay.
Did Prabhupada say it was his body too? Did he? Okay.
I mean,
but he said in the 10th canto it's Krishna's body. Krishna has advented himself in ISKCON.
But he didn't say ISKCON is his soul, so body can perish also somehow. So should we be afraid of, because without spiritual organization, or
yeah, of course
if that happens, what are we going to do?
Or what are you going to do? Well, we can't. I won't even try to imagine what you're going to do. Yeah, well, just like Krishna, Mother Yasoda was always fearful for Krishna. That's part of the process. We think, oh, ISKCON, big deal. Let it disappear. I'm already practically there anyhow. Krishna's just around the corner waiting for me. No, we should be a little fearful. But we should not be paralyzed by fear. Instead, we should actually try to do something to assist ISKCON so it can actually become steady and grow. And we can't do anything. We should chant our rounds better, come to the programs, try to do some service, do whatever we can. ISKCON is made out of the members, there's nothing, I never met ISKCON. It's hard, fearful for ISKCON. Really, what happened to him? He got the flu, ISKCON means the individual members and their participation in following Prabhupada's instructions. Becoming conscious of Krishna. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Grandaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.